What's up, y'all? Hope you guys had a great July 4th yesterday. Hope you guys spent a lot of time with family and friends and ate some good barbecue food. I know I did. But anyway, let's get into today's video. Obviously, by the title, you can see we're talking about the winners and losers of free agency so far. Obviously, with names like Larry Markkinen most likely going to get traded and DeMar DeRozan still not signed to a team yet, we still have to see what's going to happen. But I just want to go over the winners and losers so far up to July 5th at 10:15 in the morning. Alright, so let's get started here. So, my first winner of the video is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. So, obviously, the additions Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, and they got 2030 and 2031 first from Minnesota for Rob Dillingham. So, obviously, for the Spurs, I talked about this before. The signing of Chris Paul is amazing because you're getting a veteran who can help develop Wemby into a superstar player. Not that he isn't already, but I think that, with Chris Paul, he's going to be able to make that process happen quicker, and I think that we could see him make an All-NBA team next year. I could see, honestly, All-NBA third team, possibly All-NBA second team, depending on how Jokic and Embiid play next year. But, yeah, I think he's going to be great for offensively, just like throwing lobs to Victor Wembanyama and in the pick and roll. As we know, Chris Paul throughout his whole career has been a really good pick and roll player. I think this is exactly what the Spurs needed because with Chris Paul, you're able to run different sets out of the pick and roll, and you can have more creativity almost. So you can have like a different amount of people on the strong side and weak side whenever you're doing pick and roll, and Chris Paul can just be creative with it and just get buckets or set up his teammates really well. Looking at Stephon Castle, obviously a really, really good defender here next to Victor Wembanyama. And Chris Paul is a great defender as well, so their defense is going to end up being one of the best in the league in my opinion. But I think Stephon Castle is going to be able to press up maybe full court if he wants to on guards and potentially have the ability to be like very physical, especially with his size at 6'6". I think that he's going to be able to get in people's grill, and I think that it's going to be very effective. But yeah, and on top of that, you're getting 2030 and 2031 first for Rob Dillingham, which, I think Rob Dillingham would have been a solid piece, but I think that you already added two guards here, so I could see why they didn't add him. But these first round picks, you never know, they could be something good if Anthony Edwards ends up leaving Minnesota. I mean, those could be lottery picks for sure. Alright, going into my first loser, I had the Los Angeles Clippers. So obviously, you got Paul George leaving the team, but you did add Derrick Jones Jr., Nicholas Batum, Chris Dunn, and Mo Bamba. So yeah, although those additions may help a little bit, I don't think they're going to have the same impact that Paul George has for the Clippers, obviously. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is going to be pretty solid, and Nick Batum. But I think, losing a scorer like Paul George who can get you buckets, especially late in the game, I think it's going to be hard for them, especially if Kawhi Leonard and potentially James Harden are hurt in the playoffs. And I think that they're definitely, like I said, there's definitely still a playoff team, but I don't think that they're going to be a championship contender unless they can stay healthy. I think that's that should be their main goal going into the season. Okay, so looking at my next winner here, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. So their key additions include Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, and obviously they traded Josh Giddey for Caruso. So, in my opinion, I love the move to sign Isaiah Hartenstein. I think that you get a big, traditional big like I've talked about before. I think that he's going to be very solid for the Thunder team, and I think that, if he backs up Chet, he's gonna be able to have the ability to guard like bigger centers. Or they could honestly have Chet start at the 4 and Hartenstein come and play the 5, and he can just guard bigger guys like Joel Embiid. But I think that the addition of Alex Caruso also, you're getting a really good perimeter defender to add to this already defensively sound team. And I think that, they're going to be pretty good on the defensive side of the ball. Losing Josh Giddey, you're losing a little playmaking there. But honestly, I think that trading Giddey for Caruso is a great trade in my opinion. And I honestly think that Josh Giddey really didn't fit the whole culture of the team, I guess. Like, it didn't seem like he was fitting with the AAU style of the team. I think that Giddey kind of he was looking too much for himself. And I think that's ultimately why he ended up getting benched, because he was trying to do too much in the playoffs. All right, looking at my next loser, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. So really, this is more just because they're not signing anyone really, and everyone else is getting better. So we look at like the New York Knicks, for example. They signed OG, like they re-signed him, and they traded for Mikal Bridges, which is really big. But looking at the Bucks here, they haven't done anything other than re-sign Malik Beasley, I believe. I think that their main goal most likely is to get Giannis healthy so that they can have a full playoff run with him and Damian Lillard. With Damian Lillard's age, I think it's going to be hard to compete for a couple more seasons just because, obviously he's getting older and his prime is running out. But I think that they really need to add some more role players, and I think that if they want to compete and win the NBA championship like they did before, that's what they need to do. They need to sign free agents and they need to trade for more players. And I think that if they do that, then they can win the championship again and be contenders like they were before. All right, look at my next winner. I have the Dallas Mavericks here. So obviously they lost Derrick Jones Jr., but they added Klay Thompson, and I think that Klay Thompson is going to be a really, really good fit next to Kyrie and Luka Doncic because he's more like an off-ball player. He's not going to be on the ball too much. He's not going to hog the ball. He's going to either take an open shot, or if he has a scoring opportunity, he'll take it, or he's just going to get right back off it. So I think he's going to be good like for ball movement concerns, and I think that he's going to allow the team to have more of a identity of swinging the ball quickly. I think that was a big issue with them, especially in the NBA Finals, is where they relied too much on ISO ball, especially whenever they had Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic not playing up to their standards. I think that's why they lost. And obviously, the role players weren't playing up to their standards. And you look at Klay Thompson, obviously he didn't have a great playoff run this year, but I think that Klay Thompson's still super effective. And I think that he's going to help the Mavericks win games. And I think that, especially with his playoff experience and having 4 championships, I think that he'll work out in the long run for the Mavs. All right, looking at another winner here, I actually have the Philadelphia 76ers, who signed Paul George and extended Tyrese Maxey. So both of these moves, in my opinion, are really big. I love Paul George, what he brings to the 76ers. They really need another scoring threat. And I love that you extend Maxey here for the future because you're proving to yourself and the fans that you're willing to compete for more years. And that's very attractive for someone like Joel Embiid, especially because, like I said, you're showing you're competing. So after the 2027 year, which is when his contract expires, he's most likely going to stay in Philly just because they're a win-now team. And I think that looking at this year, with Paul George, Maxey, and Embiid, as long as you got Embiid staying healthy, I think that they're going to make a farther run than they did this year for sure in the Eastern Conference. But I think that, they're definitely showing that they're a contending team, and they're proving that by signing Paul George, obviously. I think if they just implement Paul George really well into their system, then they can win more games and they can be a championship contender. All right, look at my last loser here. I actually have the Denver Nuggets. So kind of like the Bucks, they didn't add anyone, but they lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the Magic. And we saw this last year with the Nuggets where they lost Bruce Brown for basically nothing. I mean, Bruce Brown definitely did get a little bit of an overpay from the Indiana Pacers. But, I mean, he's still definitely a big loss, especially considering the amount of effect he had on that championship roster in 2023. But looking at KCP, obviously, you're losing one of your best 3-and-D players, and that's really important in the NBA, like I've said before. And, I think that you definitely don't have the money to pay KCP $22 million a year. I think the Magic definitely outbid them. But I think that he's definitely a big part of their roster, especially considering the championship DNA he has with the Nuggets. And, just like looking at this year, I mean, the Nuggets are still like one of the best teams in the Western Conference. But without KCP and without adding people, it's going to be hard for them to compete in the improving Western Conference when you have teams like, the Dallas Mavericks, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the San Antonio Spurs. Like, they're all making moves to get better, but the Nuggets just, like, haven't really done much. And I don't really understand why, because you have the best center in the NBA. You have Jamal Murray, who's a great playoff player. And you have Michael Porter Jr. So there's no reason really to not go out there and spend money. I mean, like, if you're the owner, I think that you should pay the luxury tax just because, like, right now is your window to win championships, and you don't want to end up losing people like Nikola Jokic to free agency, which I doubt he'll ever leave, but it's still a possibility. And I think that if the Nuggets just keep adding people, then I think that they can compete for another championship. And I think that, most importantly, they're going to be able to keep their star players happy, So one more loser I have for my list is actually the LA Lakers. So obviously we don't know if DeMar DeRozan is going to go to the Lakers yet, which it is definitely possible. But, for me, the reason why I put the Lakers here is because you didn't get Klay Thompson, you didn't get Chris Paul, and you didn't get Paul George, and you're most likely not going to get DeMar DeRozan unless he somehow signs there after LeBron's giant extension. So, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to get better. And considering that you have LeBron James and you just hired a new coach in JJ Redick, I think it was really important for them to sign at least one of those guys, and they haven't been able to do that. So obviously, if they signed DeMar DeRozan, I think this is a completely different story. But currently, as of now, I think they're definitely one of the losers of free agency, and I think that the only thing they've really won out so far is they've kept LeBron happy, which I think that is definitely important because he's like the best player on the team. I think that with them not taking the opportunities on some of these guys in free agency, it's definitely a question mark around if they're really wanting to compete. And I think that it's kind of like the same thing we've seen in the previous couple of seasons, to where like they need like another, like one more really 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 good role player, or like a semi-star player. Like you don't need like a Paul George, for example, but you definitely could have used a Klay Thompson really well. So I think that, if they're able to sign DeMar DeRozan, I think that'll help a lot. But as of now, I think they're definitely still one of the losers of free agency. Alright guys, I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and make sure you guys check out my links. I'll put them in the description below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.